I thought we were doing a countdown.
Oh, well, 3, 2, 1, go.
3, 2, 1, go. Are we live?
Yep.
Oh. Hi, everyone. 1 second here. All right. Hi, everyone. As always, since we are getting started, today's going to be a little different, though. The contest, which ended yesterday, and that was our summer 2015 contest, and we are going to announce the winners today. But this was the first one on the new CG Cookies site, and it worked really well. So it was kind of cool to see that you guys were really going into the community forums and not only posting your work, but there were a lot of comments and feedback given to the people that did submit. And that's kind of what these contests are meant to be. They're obviously supposed to showcase your current skill level, but hopefully also to push yourself and get critiques from other people or feedback from people that you normally wouldn't have. And hopefully that will help you in the long run. So we're going to have another contest in October. We throw one every Halloween. So yes, there will be another one in October, but we won't say what the theme is until October 1st, most likely. Okay, so as we get this started, though, I'm going to do the final marketing push as always, and you could put where you're watching from in the comments, as most of you are already conditioned to. And Joe will be the host with the most, telling where you are watching from. It's all you.
Oh, wait, do we have the... Here is it.
Oh, I showed Joe the sound effects that Google Hangout has today. And he thinks it's the greatest thing ever.
I love it. It's great. You're just like...
Admittedly, that's my favorite one. All right, let me go ahead and start posting.
Yeah. Hello from Canada, William. Hello, William. Oh, William is back. I haven't seen him in a while. Amelia says, hello, nice and early from Australia. Oh, man.
Hello.
I wonder if Kieran's watching.
Right.
I am not says, hello, I'm eating popcorn.
That sounds a bit corny.
Lotus Number says, hello from NJ, which I'm guessing is New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Nelson says, oh, it just moved. Hello from Indy. Hope you both are doing well. I'd say we're doing pretty well. I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing, Tim?
Doing fantastic. And for those of you who don't know, we actually had 2 more people move into this house the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it's become kind of like an art house incubator for our the modern hippie and me. And we're kind of hopefully going to be growing together as artists. Or at least that's the goal.
We may or may not have a Vine channel.
Which I don't want you to look up.
Christy McAbee says, hello from Portland, Oregon. Again. Hello, Christy. Whoa. Welcome back. Jimmy Brent says, hello from Sweden. Luis is back, says, evening from England, guys. Tim, you learned how to say the place name in Wales yet?
No.
No?
It might take a little while.
Carissa says, hello from Washington. I wonder if she can explain it all. That's a really bad 90s reference that people probably don't know. Veva says, hello from Slovakia. Ian says, hello from Vancouver. Eric Desus says, hello from Ukraine. Man, Ukraine. So far away. Divine Kidder says hello from Poland. Miss Chibiarter says hi from Michigan. I'm at Big B. Cheers. Haha. And then Tijol says, hey, greetings from a very sick Tijol. Fever of 49.5 degrees Celsius. Still not stopping me from watching the streams. I'm so excited. Good luck, guys. Have fun. Thank you, Tijol, for watching, even though you are extremely sick.
Always appreciated, Tijol. We send our love.
Please drink plenty of water and get plenty of rest. Douglas, oh, you're good?
Or do your last one.
Okay. Douglas says hello from Brazil.
Hello. As always, it's super cool to see that this is kind of a worldly live stream, and it's really neat seeing that. Okay. So today, like we said earlier, is going to be a little different. We're going to start the live stream with more of just a free draw where Joe is going to start getting together the announcement and how we're going to present the winners. But for the first half hour, I'm going to be doing a free draw, which means if you guys want to ask any questions or something you're curious about, I'm going to work on a character bust with kind of strange color. And the reason I want to do that is to kind of segue into the color course was released yesterday. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, me and Joe have been working on a color course this past like month and a half, and it's all about understanding color. And it's actually the first half of what will be the entirety color course. So I'm working on kind of a secret course over the next week, but then after that, I'm going to be working on the second half of the color course, which is working in color. So the first half is understanding it, and then we're going to take what you learn in that one and then apply it into practice, and I'll show you guys more tutorials on working with color, because I think they're both equally important, but I think the working color might be more fun and exciting to watch, but it really is important to understand the terms and the ideas and the reasoning behind color and color use. So I think it's important to watch both, not just the exciting one, which will be coming out probably in October if I gave kind of an estimate. That sounds about right. Maybe near the end of October. So we'll definitely keep you guys updated on that. And I think those were the big announcements. So if you're here just for the contest results, it'll probably be in about 45 minutes. And yeah, stay tuned. I know there's a lot of anticipation. So let's go ahead and get started. That was a Rocky Horror reference. All right. So I'm going to share out my screen. Let me see here. Oh, and really quick, I forgot to do we do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time, and that's stateside, so it's -5 GMT. Usually the topic is posted an hour or two beforehand. And next week, it's been requested, so Joe and I finally decided we're going to take that request on, which is Joe will start the stream with his quick sketching line art, and then I will finish the stream with my shading and coloring. So this will be our first collaboration piece and kind of show you guys how to work with kind of on a team, even though it's only 2 people, but how different styles can definitely speak through, even though it's 2 people doing it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to my canvas here. Okay. So then I guess, Joe, if you can shoot like a few questions I could start with, but ones that aren't specifically to have me draw something, and then let me get started on doing kind of a character bust.
You said ones that aren't specific to?
Like ones that I could answer without having to draw it.
Okay.
Okay.
Divine Keteroshi asks, why do you use mechanical pencils instead of the regular wooden one? Are they more precise, personal preference, or they make shading easier?
I would definitely say personal preference. I wouldn't say it's actually the right way to go either. I've been trying to dabble more with the actual legit pencils, and I think it just needs me to get out of my comfort zone and trying to work with like the really hard lead pencils that aren't mechanical, and then see where that kind of takes me. It's definitely a comfort level, and I like working on such a small scale, and sometimes with those harder pencils, it's hard to erase them. So I think I like working with them because there's such a sense of control that I can have.
I am not asks, is the color thing free?
No. So this is for citizen users. So this is what is that called? A subscription-based tutorial. So you have to sign up for a CG Cookie. But the intro is free, so you can check that out. And if it is something that interests you, then maybe you should consider becoming a citizen.
I was going to say, I would consider this more like a, you're not getting one video for the subscription base, you're getting like, what, probably...
I think it's 11 total videos.
It's 11 total videos plus the
color course. And then, yeah, you get everything else.
Yeah. This person says their name is Kaketka56. So I found your lookalike brother, Corbin James Stanton. You look alike. It's crazy. I'm going to Google images this right now.
Oh boy.
Corbin James Stanton. I don't. It's like
face of disappointment.
yeah, it's like the image is just of this weird looking guy, and they're just like random people's Facebook profile pictures. So I don't know. Oh, weird. This guy from Utah kind of looks like you. Oh, that's very weird. Kind of.
I've seen a few people that looked like me before.
Yeah, who have you been told? Ooh, I like this. I like his dad's tie. It's a Spider-Man tie. But anyway, who have you been told you look like famous wise?
Oh, Michael Cera. I'm like,
what?
Yeah, I know. That's I'm like, the person in Game of Thrones. There's a new character being added, and apparently I look like him.
Really?
Yeah, but there was someone. It was a commercial for some fast food, and it was like a quick glimpse you see of him, and I was like, that is the first person that legit looks like me. And of course, it's during a weird commercial.
Next question is from Nikki. It says, what do you recommend doing to help transition in between drawing on a pad, tablet to paper?
So this is what I call a 3-month hump. The transition definitely takes a little bit because of the muscle memory, and you're no longer looking down at what you're drawing, you're looking up. And of course, if you have a Cintiq, it's a little different, but usually the transition from paper to tablet, I would say for all the times that I've taught, and especially when I taught at the college, it always seemed like it took about 3 months for the student to kind of fully become comfortable with the tablet. Now, mind you, it varies from person to person. Some pick it up quicker, some are actually a little slower, but for the most part, 3 months. So the things that are different are the muscle memory, and then the idea that you have to learn not only how to use a tablet, but you also have to become familiar with the software. So like, even if you're a really good artist, like you could open up Photoshop and eventually you will be able to understand the tools and how to use them properly. But at first, I mean, you're kind of lost, and if you don't know the software, it's going to be kind of a struggle. So not only do you have to make this transition on learning to use a tablet, but you also have to learn a new software, which you might not have ever opened before. And Photoshop, admittedly, is a bit intimidating the first time you open it. So I don't want you guys feeling like if you're going through this transition period that it should be faster. I'm telling you, no, it'll probably be a lot slower than what you might think. Unless if you're like really actively trying to better and pursue your skill in it, it can be just a big challenge. So take your time with it and learn as much as you can. Sorry, learn as much as you can about the different tools and the features that are available in Photoshop, because the sooner that you become familiar with it, the sooner it becomes easier and to find, like, let's say you're working on something and you really need to do like a color balancing on it, and it's way too red and you need more greens or magentas. If you know how to do that in just like the image adjustment, it's so much easier than trying to manually adjust all of the colors with just a paintbrush. So I guess that would be kind of my advice for that.
I just saw a really good question. Oh no, it was a question in regards to the exercises. And oh, here it is from Mizidor. It says, okay, I have to ask, I've been kind of missing the exercises. Will you be bringing them back?
Yes. So in a different way though. So the way that we're even doing the color course, we are going to be launching exercise stuff with it. So the course is out now, but what we're doing is we're going to have not only available exercise resources that you can download and like work on. But then we're going to have videos also showing like how we went about doing the exercise and how we would recommend you guys to do it. So they are coming back. I know it's kind of strange with the 5.0 layout and the way that we've been working with the new site. We're kind of so focused on creating all of the fundamental tutorials before we kind of get back into how we kind of worked with the old format with Concept Cookie, where there was an exercise every 2 weeks. But eventually I want to get back into that kind of layout. But my time is so focused on doing the new tutorials that I think it's just going to take some time.
Tigil asks, have you ever had a day that you were so sick of drawing and painting that you just don't want to do it anymore?
No. I think I've had bad days where I don't feel like drawing that day, but I wouldn't say just like not doing it at all anymore. I think I just have like those, I need to like go lay down or go to bed. Usually that's the problem. It's like I've been up way too long. It's like, Tim, just go to bed. I can't see me ever like wanting to fully give it up, but I can definitely understand that struggle. Like I actually know I can understand that, because in college I would say I had a few times where I'd be like, I don't want to do concept art. I don't want to be a game artist. I would rather be like a children's book illustrator. But I mean, I guess that's still drawing. So I don't know. What about you, Joe? Have you ever gone through something like that where you wanted to give it up completely?
Like, minor stuff. So like last night, for example, I mean, I really wanted to paint. I really wanted to do a lot. Like I wanted to play Metal Gear Solid 5, and then I wanted to paint. But then I was also so tired that I just decided, hey, just go to sleep, because I'll be able to do it tomorrow. So there's that. I fell asleep just scribbling in my sketchbook. Like I still try to make an effort trying to do something while I fall asleep, drawing wise. But as far as like major, yeah, I mean, I changed majors in college quite a bit, but it was always in a creative outlet. And for a while there, I was like, I'm going to be a personal trainer for the rest of my life. I could do this. And then a couple months in, about 6 months in, I was like, I was using, every time that I was a personal trainer, I would use my creative brain, my brain power, to try to be more than just like, this is how you lift weights, like, or how you do a bench press. I would try to be like, do a push up to this maneuver to this thing, and try to make it more interesting for people. So I was still using my creativeness to even in that. So I would say I never gave up my creativity because I was sick of it. Like I love being creative, and I don't think that'll ever go away, you know?
Yeah.
I am not says, so you should practice arting every day, but does that entail looking at studying art or similar non-hands-on methods?
It's what works best for you. It's really tough to say like there's a one-all say all to be like this is how one would learn. And I know me and Joe discussed this where everyone is different. Like for Joe, he really enjoys doing studies and then hopefully applying it then to his work, and like that's a great way for him to learn. For me, I usually like doing illustrative pieces if I want to like tackle drawing, let's say gold or something. I'll try to put it in the new piece somehow or integrate it somehow where I'm forced to learn it, and that's how I learn. But it's like there's no one right way or wrong way. It's you have to kind of know who you are as an artist and how you learn, and then work with that.
Amelia Jane says, hi, Imagine FX talked about underpainting, but I didn't really understand it. Could you explain what underpainting is?
So typically that's more for a traditional painting, but it's in a sense where you're building up your background, and then when you draw your foreground subject matters, you're able to pull from the color underneath it. So if you leave areas where you don't maybe paint with a full opacity, you let some of that background shine through. It's intentional. For digital, I kind of see it more as like what I did with, so initially I started with this dark gray background, and then this would essentially be my underpainting, this like brown, almost like rust color near the top, and there's a slight transition. And then you paint on top and you let those colors bleed into whatever it is you're working on. So that's what I would consider an underpainting with digital art. I think I'm going to make her like a swamp witch or something.
We're so totally ramping up for Halloween.
Oh, yeah. So if you guys don't know, I'm kind of a huge fan of Halloween. And for Concept Cookie, or for CG Cookie, I should say, it kind of like bled through. So during the month of October, Joe and I will be having some fun with the live streams and with what's going on the site. So look forward to that if you are just as big of a dork about Halloween as we are. And yes, there might be a few costumes seen on the live streams.
I can't wait. That's going to be so much fun.
Mm-hmm. That one will be good.
Iris Gustav says, a lot of the time I feel like I procrastinate drawing. Don't even try because I'm almost afraid it will look bad. I have a lot to learn and I don't know where to start. How do you suggest someone like me gets over this fear?
So it's one of the biggest things I always tend to rant about is never work out of fear. And it's so much easier said than done, because like I can tell you all day, like you can't work out of fear, like do practices, studies, get inspired, go outside, whatever. But there needs to be some form of commitment to that idea from you. And I guess the easiest way to do it is to just try. And it doesn't have to be anything that you're going for like perfection or something that you're like going to spend 20 hours in. Maybe just do like an hour's worth of something completely new, something that you don't care if it looks bad or not. The whole intention is just to experiment and try something new. And usually I admittedly don't do it enough, but sometimes it'll be like trying a new technique, like even this blend brush that I never used to use before. I experimented with it when I went down to CG Cookie for like 2 hours, and now I use it in like every piece I do. And if I never did that experiment, I don't know if I would be using it, and I don't know if my pieces would have that same blend look. And it all contributes back to that initial try, that initial experiment, not caring what the piece looked like, purely just trying to level up your understanding or skill level with a certain tool. So for you, I think that would be my advice, is to just try without don't put yourself down either. That's the other worst thing. I hate it when I hear artists down talk themselves, because then they believe it. And when you believe it, I feel like subconsciously you hold yourself back from growing and becoming the best artist that you can be, because you believe the idea that you're not good. And that's like the worst thing that an artist can tell themselves. So maybe try to do a mixture of those. And I'm telling you, like, you just got to try and push yourself, and don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just have fun with it, because honestly, when you have the most fun doing art, that's usually when your best pieces come out. So don't put too much pressure on it. And if it really isn't looking great and you're not like proud of it at all, chalk it up as experience and a learning experience, and take what you've learned and then apply it to the next piece you do. But never stop.
Don't be afraid. Awesome question from I can't even pronounce his name. Ivaxidification. Hi, Tim and Joe. I will have my first booth in a convention next week. Any tips or advice for conventions? Thanks.
Yeah, there's actually, I could write up a whole thing of what I would recommend bringing. So for your first booth, I would definitely bring like a little box of essentials. And it may sound strange, but trust me, it'll come up more than you might think. So like duct tape, scotch tape, scissors, change. Make sure you bring a lot of change. You'll be surprised by how many people pay in 20s. And then every now and then someone will pay in 100. And then you're like, I you'll be proud because you'll be like, oh, I have change for that. But I've been stuck in a position once where I kind of had to ask the person next to me for change, and it was really strange. So now I always bring at least $140 in change to every convention I go to. A garbage can, food, make sure you're nourishing yourself, or and even like a water bottle of some kind, and just go fill it up and then come back to your booth. And I guess something to do if you don't want to just sit behind your booth and talk to people. If you want to like be working on something, I would bring a sketchbook and maybe challenge yourself, like draw the people passing by your booth or people kind of in the distance that you see, or even cosplayers, and have fun with it. Oh, and don't undersell yourself. Sorry, that was my last.
Yeah. I would also, if you can, bring a friend.
Yes.
I would highly suggest always having somebody at your booth, whether it be you or someone just watching your stuff. Especially if you're selling, you don't want to like walk away from a booth and then have nobody at your booth for like, because you don't want to come back and have somebody standing there being like, where were you? So yeah, bring a friend, because then also you won't be bored. There's a lot of downtime sometimes at cons where you're not just constantly trying to sell stuff. And I think depending on like the friend, they'll appreciate going to the con too. Like if it's an anime convention, and they're a big anime fan, they'll probably be like, yeah. And you could always have them go get you food as well, because I know they usually have concession stands. What was I going to say? When Tim says change, he doesn't mean like quarters.
Oh yeah, like $5, a lot of $5 bills.
Yes,
5 and 10. Those are like the big ones.
What else? What's really important?
Have a good attitude.
Yeah. Be positive. Talk to people. Smile. Be happy.
And keep it genuine too.
Yeah.
Don't. Like sometimes if someone is really excited about your work, like don't just like blow them off. Like acknowledge that and like thank them.
Say hi to people that walk by.
Only if you want to.
Yeah. Only if you want to. Don't sit behind your booth playing your DS.
Yes.
Because that to me, when I'm looking for art and I see someone do that, I'm like, they're not interested in what if I like something or not, I guess. But I guess everyone kind of goes for different reasons for cons, Trying to think of what else. You said tape, right?
Yes.
Tape's really important because sometimes your stuff falls. I need to fix it. And make sure you can carry everything. Like don't and you might need to make a couple trips to carry your stuff back and forth. You said food, water. Water is important. Vitamin C supplements usually is a good idea. Some people bring antibacterial soap because they're germaphobes about stuff, shaking people's hands and whatnot. But yeah, I think that's a pretty long list of stuff.
Did you get that all?
Yeah, right. Let's see. It was a pretty good question earlier, and I totally lost it. Boo, 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 boo. Let me keep looking. Oh, what is today's question?
I don't know if there's one today just because it's a shorter one, and then we have the contest announcements. But I think next week will be something with collaboration, but yeah, I guess none today.
Jalajal says, when I paint, I have a tendency to have too much contrast in my painting. Is it important to have a certain amount of length between light and dark? Some artists make very successful paintings with a lot of contrast, and others with very little.
This is a good question because I do think contrast is one of the most important things when it comes to working on a piece and directing people's attention. But I think when people hear the word contrast, they immediately think value contrast or brightness contrast. And just know that there is contrast that you can put into your pieces through hue and saturation as well. So it doesn't just have to be brightness. The thing I do see is like so even like on this piece, the hair, I'll never go darker than this color on that side. But typically you would think, well, if I wanted to make it darker, I would use black and like make it more shadow. But let's have some fun with this. Let me where's my color palette? I'm gonna grab this yellow, and rather than it being a darker value, I'm gonna use a different hue, different saturation, and a different brightness. Let me get this all blended together here. Then maybe I'll make it look like there's a yellow light coming from behind.
Already, it's like just like popping out.
Yeah, and it's just like an easy, super easy contrast. So even like this is called rim lighting, where you light the edge of your figure. I have to look at the whole thing. And I haven't done like rim lighting in a long time. So I'm gonna I'll keep blending this out, but the idea is you don't have to always go to like a darker. Usually it's typically black. I usually see artists go just to black when they need to add more contrast or more value, when really that's not at all what you need to do. There's definitely a lot of other options you can take. It doesn't have to just be like the go-to to just use black. Actually, yeah. Let me keep just working on this backlighting, and then I'll answer another question.
Vanessa MR says, "Hi, Tim and Joe. I'm doing studies drawing a lot of portraits of the same person with different angles and expressions, but I feel like I have never achieved the likeness. Any tips? Thanks."
I guess it would depend. I would have to see what you're doing, because it could just be a proportion thing. It could be very anatomical. But if you really feel like it's not working, then I would really step away from it and really analyze it. What about it isn't right? And even put like them side by side. And if you're not able to see it, I think that's a bigger problem than not being able to recreate it, because your visual eye and what you're seeing, you're not able to decipher what's wrong with it. So you've got to first be able to tell what is wrong with it, and then you can start the process of figuring out, okay, how do I fix that, or how do I learn to make this look correct? So if you want to, you could actually send, or maybe on the community post what you're talking about, post the reference image and the thing you're working on, and we could take a look at it.
Yeah, go to the community and make a sketchbook and then post it, so that way everyone can see what's going on, and we can probably throw in our 2 cents. Jimmy Brandt says, or asks, "How do you make a drawing more flowy and less stiff? I'm getting more and more secure with drawing, but I have a problem getting it to look less stiff and more natural in the pose and such."
If you can tell that when you're drawing, I think, because I had that problem too, where all my characters were just in like a standing pose. It was the very T pose at like a slight angle. So from the get-go, I think you need to have more dynamic flows. So make sure you have a really awesome S flow with your character from the start, and maybe just experiment with a super dynamic pose. Like even if you pull a character that you've already done, so you don't have to focus too much on the concept itself, you can just focus on the pose and making everything feel right and dynamic. But usually it comes to you not feeling comfortable and loose or like confident with your brush strokes in the beginning, and that usually leads to it just becoming stiff all the way through the end. This is something that I think I still struggle with, where I start with something that is more rigid, and I kind of hide the fact that it is so, or I try to hide the fact that it's so rigid and stiff through over rendering it, because I feel so much more confident in my rendering abilities than I do my dynamic pose ability. So it's one of those you have to be very conscious about how you're doing it, and then push yourself. So if you find yourself retreating into a comfort zone, be like, nope, this isn't what I set out to do. I'm reverting back to this old habit, I'm going to start over and I'm going to make it specifically with more of a dynamic pose.
My recommendation is to don't go like full into animation. Like don't like spend the next year studying animation, but definitely look at how animators perceive their drawings, because that'll help a lot with how you can do gesture, and it'll help put breath into your characters. So even the littlest like motion of like a pose, and studying from like Tarzan, like Disney's Tarzan, like everything looks very natural, and I would say it's probably one of the like you can see the anatomy going on in the animation because he's wearing only a loincloth. So you can see how they approach their natural motion in poses and stuff. So I would say study from things like that. Oh man, I'm just thinking about how Glenn Keane looked at the rollerbladers. Did you ever watch that behind the scenes footage of how he studied like guys skating, and then he was like, "That's what we need to do for Tarzan on the vines."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So then like that whole scene when he's doing the vine, like that scene just makes me so giddy because it's like the foot movement in that's so natural looking.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Lionfish says, "Hi there, I would like your advice. I spend most of my time doing commissions for other people, but I want to do my personal projects. Should I stop doing these commissions, which is paying my bills, to pursue my personal projects? There's a way to do both."
I would almost have to recommend both, but I can totally understand the idea of it being really overwhelming, and especially when you need the money to like pay for stuff, but you want to work on personal. So something that I would try, maybe just try it out, is during the day or whenever you do your commissions, or if you have a day job, obviously stick to that until you feel comfortable just having art kind of pay for the bills. But if you're doing this commission and freelance to pay the bills, then I would do that during the day, and then try to have at least a half hour, an hour where you are only allowed to work on your personal project. Doesn't matter if you have big deadlines or you're really not feeling like it that night. I almost need to like push you to try doing it for at least an hour a night, because if you don't create your personal project, no one else will. And it's kind of a hard truth of learning that like time goes by really fast, especially as you get older. It just seems to like fly. So it's better to have little tidbits here and there, like little chunks done, and those will add up over time than trying to get a big chunk done at one time. And then, at least for me, that seems to always have been working with even the people I know. They try to work in like small portions at a time, and they don't let it be their main focus. So it's almost like you're doing it on the side, because I've also heard the idea that if it becomes your main focus, it kind of kills the passion for it, because then it is like you're doing it because you have to and you need the money. So some things might be forced in it, or it might not be, or it could be rushed, and it might not be exactly what you wanted it to be. And then you might be disappointed, which is like the worst thing to think of for a personal passion project, is that it didn't come out the way that you wanted it to. So don't rush it, but try to work on it little bits at a time, even if it means sacrificing some sleep or some commission work.
I guess it also kind of depends on the commissions that they're doing too, because if you're doing commission work, that means that someone's looking for your specific taste in things, I'm guessing. So if you were to do like say an adventure with like a bunch of leather belts, but so like what you can do to further your story, I guess, is to don't take that pure concept, but if you still have a story in mind and your style is where you want it to be, then you can just, like Tim said, take an hour or two out of your day and push forward with your story. you know. So I wonder if it's a like if they're afraid of pushing their story, like what's stopping their story from being created, I guess, is my
I
question.
assume time. And that is a really tough one because, like, yeah, when you have a full-time job that maybe you don't enjoy, that's when it can be really killer because by the time you get home, you're so exhausted from this job that you don't even enjoy going to. And
Right.
then to work up the motivation to start on your own stuff can be a struggle.
Well, not only that, but then there's also, you know, you get home and then you want to just relax,
Yeah.
you know, instead of work. Whereas I guess it's the idea of we'll find drawing relaxing, you know,
Yeah.
sit down and draw instead of watching TV. Uh, Anna asks, what did you do to get the super saturated effect with the yellow eyes and the backlighting of the eyes?
Oh, so okay, that was an overlay layer. Let me see if I can. All right, so it was right here. All right, so pretty much you just create a new layer, set the blend mode to overlay, and I grab this yellow here, and then wherever you lay it on, not with this brush though, this brush, and I just laid it over the areas that I wanted to be more saturated. So like with the light, I definitely wanted it to feel like it was a very heavy backlight, and then her eyes to kind of give it that matching intensity. I wanted it to be reflected in her eyes as well. So it's really simple, but overlaying things and over multiplying things can be a problem for pieces. So use it only when necessary or subtly versus like laying it on really heavy, because then it can just be a huge distraction.
Tijel asks two questions, or he has three, but I'm only going to use two of these. What's your favorite kind of cake, and have you ever been screwed over by a client?
Favorite kind of cake? One with a lot of frosting, but not the whipped. I'm very specific. It has to be the creamy one. Yes, I have been screwed over by a client, but I don't like to refer it as screwed over because and I know this is so cliche, but it taught me so much about how I need to treat myself in my own freelance work. And it was, I don't want to get too specific, but pretty much it was for when I was in school, I got an internship for a game company, a really small mobile game company. And it was kind of like they would give me assignments and I would do them within a week or two. So the idea was they would pay me in royalty, which I need you guys to understand how scary of a word that can be for artists. Like if they're going to pay you in royalty, definitely really do some research on if this project is going to be a success or not, or just demand that they pay you up front in some kind of a way. Because usually what that entails is that it may or may not be successful, but if it's not successful, you don't really get much. There isn't much of a, what is that called? A return on your investment for your time. And how they get people is that like if it gets really big, then you get a huge portion of that because of royalties. But I'm telling you now, most of the times it's not like that at all. You would much rather be paid up front with the promise of doing us a set number of work or concepts or landscapes, whatever it might be beforehand, so that you know what you're getting into. And you also have to be upfront with them, because as much as we like to hear about artists getting screwed over, it can go both ways, where you can definitely screw over your employer, where you have to be honest with how long something will take you. And if you tell them, you know, your hourly rate is like $18 or $25 an hour, and if they expect like a 3 hour time frame for you to complete something, but then it takes you like 8 hours, well, you literally just more than doubled what you initially told them it would take you, and then they would have to pay you over twice as much, which isn't fair to them either. So it's got to be a good working relationship. And whenever you're doing stuff with freelance, like go out of your way to make sure it's a good working relationship. Because even if you can tell like it's kind of going south, you do your best to pull it back. So yeah, it definitely is a two-way street.
Ooh, good question. From Lord Zeros, it says, I recently accepted a commission and it's turning out to be a bit harder than I thought. Should I quit or should I grind it out?
Never quit. Grind it out. But if it's for a paid commission, wait, let me read the. Yes, if it's a paid commission, you definitely should try your best to finish it. But unless if you really believe you're not going to be giving something that is satisfactory for the person that bought it, I would definitely let them know and then maybe offer, actually not even maybe, I would definitely offer a refund. But I would still try to work at it first. Like really push yourself to complete the commission to the best of your ability. And if they commissioned you in the first place, there must have been something about your work or your either line quality, whatever it might be about your work that they wanted. So maybe even ask them specifically what they're looking for if you seem to be struggling.
Yeah, like you were saying, like communication is key with a client. If you weren't communicating with your client on a daily basis, then
that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a big problem. All of a sudden, it's like you pop up with something that you've put in hours of work into, and they're like, no. Yeah,
that happens all the time. Like it may sound funny, but it's like it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. That's why I would treat it like a in-house like work, where if someone commissions you, like you're gonna sit down and you're at your desk, and the boss is gonna or your director is gonna come up behind you every day and be like, "Do you have what you should be doing?" And then if you didn't, then that's a problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Divine Kataroshi asks, I often catch myself on asking people about the brush that they are using, canvas size and other dumb things, instead of principles like you need to do thicker lines when the object is closer to you, which is obviously more useful. How do I get over this?
It's not a bad thing. I think you might be more of a technical artist. And I have a few friends that I would consider more technical. And it's usually just curiosity on like, should I implement that in my own work? I don't know if I like, no. And I think it is good to experiment more with the things that, like what you said, are seen as more valuable in the long run. So the principles, but it's not a bad thing. I would just consider you more of a technical artist.
I guess it depends on how much time you're actually spending asking those questions. Like I know
because it's a quick question. That's fine.
Yeah, but like I know I've spent a lot of time looking for the right brush in Photoshop and in Paint Tool SI, and it's not really worth it in the end, because now I'm just using a basic default brush just to try to get things out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you get over it?
I don't think you do. I think that's ingrained in you, and then you just have to accept the fact that other people are going to be working at different resolutions. And if you're comfortable at whatever you're working on, maybe try what they're working on. But really, it comes down to personal preference a lot with technical stuff.
Iris Gustav says, I always get inspired by films and certain director styles. Do you ever get that inspiration watching a movie? Which movie directors have a style aesthetic that inspires your art? Which would you recommend that could potentially inspire?
Wow. I mean, I could have a whole 5-hour discussion about movies and their influence, but I would say just off the top of my head, definitely Wes Anderson comes to mind. But Aronofsky was I would still maybe consider him my favorite director. I think Noah was kind of a miss for me, but every other movie that he's done, I've really, really kind of fell in love with. But Synecdoche, New York, just for the ideas, but in terms of visual, the best visual movie I've ever seen, and I don't want to give away too much. I wouldn't even recommend watching the trailer, but it's called The Fall, and it's by a director called Tarsim. He directed a not too crazy good Snow White ripoff or adaptation. I shouldn't say ripoff, adaptation with Julia Roberts recently, Mirror Mirror. That one I felt was so marketed and forced, but The Fall was like a personal project that he worked on for like 20 years. He financed most of it himself, and there's no CGI in it, except for, I think he said touch-ups, but all the environments that you see are real. And it is by far the best visual movie I've ever seen. This could actually be my favorite movie of all time. It's between that and Synecdoche, New York. So that would be the one I would recommend watching if you want to be inspired. Oh, geez, we're already hitting near the 3 o'clock mark. Okay, let me do just a finishing touch here. I wanted to give her really crazy eyelashes.
Veva asks, I have a problem with posting my drawings on the internet because I'm really insecure about it. Somehow I just can't post anything I'm not satisfied 100% with. Any tips?
Take it from me, and you can even like be angry with me or whatever. I need you to get over it, because a few years from now, when you look back, you'll see the growth that you've made, and you'll be so proud that you posted it. Because once you take that first step of accepting the fact that maybe you're not creating masterpieces from the get-go, it becomes so much easier to just feel comfortable posting it. And even if you know like it's not the best that you'll ever do, it's kind of a reflection of where you're at currently. And it should be a motivation factor where it's like, I can do so much better than this. Let me post this, and then let me work on the next piece with the intention of doing something that's so much better than this, so that when I post the new piece, people that follow me can see the growth that I've made. And that growth alone, sometimes people appreciate that more so than the subject matter or the quality of art that you produce. You'll be surprised by how many people specifically will like look at the growth of an artist and see that as such a more important factor than the actual end result. Even with getting an employment, I've talked to some employers where they are more interested in the potential of the artist than where they're at currently. So if they feel like there's an artist that is super passionate and like will try anything, will experiment with new techniques, whatever, they'll pick up that person faster than they will with someone that's very stubborn but has a great produced work portfolio. So it is interesting to me sometimes to hear that, but then it rings true a lot. Like I see it happen a lot. And I think this idea of feeling insecure about posting is something that you really need to just let go. And it's a lot. This is one of those things where it is easier done than, or it's still easier said than done. But once you do it the first time, you're like, oh, that was super easy. It's just like this weird mental hurdle that we prevent ourselves from jumping over. And if just do it. I guess that would be my advice for feeling like you are ashamed of posting it. Just do it. Oh, geez, I feel like I'm Shia LaBeouf. What am I doing?
Just do it!
I know, I heard myself say that, and I was like, oh my gosh, Tim.
Isn't that funny? Because before that, it was Nike.
Yeah.
Because Nike's like... But
Not anymore.
The internet meme of Shia LaBeouf.
Yep.
When do you want to take the break?
Right now. So why don't you come down?
Okay.
I'll turn this on mute. Okay, so really quick, everyone. So especially those excited about doing the contest or hearing the contest announcement and who won, we are going to take a quick break. We were waiting for one more CG Cookie crew to send in their results so we can do the final tallies. And we already have a pretty good idea of who we think were the top 3 based on the votes that we got prior, but we just want to make sure that we're being 100% accurate of who won this based on everyone's opinion. So Joe's going to take a break, come down here. I'm going to turn myself on mute, and we're going to announce in like 3 to 5 minutes. Almost. Okay. Okay, so we got the final results in, and for the next time we do this, we might have more of a kind of dedicated video announcement of it. But I think for this one, we're gonna do it manually, like we are now. Okay, so there were a lot of submissions. So I guess, yeah, it's starting right now. So if you came just to watch for the contest announcements, we're doing it right now, like right now. And there were a lot of great submissions. This is actually one of the, I would actually argue this was the hardest contest to judge because I don't think there was one clear winner. And even with the amount of submissions we got, there wasn't one that I was like, oh, I think that one for sure is going to win it. And I think that kind of is a compliment to everyone that entered because I think there was such a variety of different styles and way of handling the theme itself that it was really awesome looking through and seeing the different interpretations. And I think that's why this one was harder to judge. But for the Halloween contest, we are going to bring back the community vote because this was a big success with the community forum on how people were liking the images. And I saw a lot of images that received, more than 10 vote ups or whatever. So now that we're implementing that with the next contest, and I'll make it clear on what that means if you don't know what I'm talking about. But pretty much we'll bring that back so that the community gets to pick their favorite as well, and then they will win an award. Okay, so the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to first, I guess, show some of the runner-ups. So these were the ones that either the crew members picked but didn't win, or ones that I personally wanted to be on the top 3, but I could only pick 3, so it was kind of hard to not select some of these. But I want you guys to know if these are your submissions, they came like right under the top 3 picks. So me and Joe are going to roll these out. Let me go ahead and I'll share my screen here. Back to my Swamp Witch. Wait, let me get my... Okay. So here are a few. I'm going to pull them up. And if you see yours, you were, I guess, essentially considered an honorable mention. So you came really close, but unfortunately there were 3 that were picked over these. So I'm just going to start laying them in here. This one, I really like the color use in this. And if you guys didn't know this, we actually read a lot of the stories that you guys put with the images. And I think that's why this one, I kind of enjoyed the idea of it's this kind of poor guy, he's older. He's always wanted to live the rich life, but now that's post-apocalyptic. He can live it. He's living on the top of a skyscraper in this mansion with a pool on the top, but he has to live it alone. And this is Joe, is that the username?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try to pronounce this. This is from Margot to Garnia. That was pretty good. So I like the idea behind it, and unfortunately, it just missed the top 3. And I think for the rest of these, I'll just kind of go through them really quick. So this one, I really liked a lot of the ideas. There were a few things, and maybe I'll do a minor critique on some of them on why I think they could be improved upon. For this one, I think the barbed wire was something, and I know it's something that is just maybe a personal aesthetic reason. This one's from Mizidora, and I think the barbed wire it doesn't quite make sense to me. It almost reads as something that was added on to kind of push the post-apocalyptic feel, but it almost feels unwarranted, where it feels out of place on her arm. This one, and I know, sorry, Joe, I'm going to have you searching for the names of what we're doing. Like going up and down really quick. I love the color palette that you used here. Obviously a nice compliment. There are a lot of cool ideas in this one. I like the half face, and it's very, very Mad Max. But what was the one thing I wrote down for this? Oh, I guess this was one of those where I just wanted it to be cleaned up, and I think the background almost became more interesting than the character, where it was like somewhere in between a concept and an illustration, where I would have liked to see you just go one way or the other. But I wanted to show this one also because for future contests, we don't allow nudity for the contest entries, and this is from I Am Not, and this is something that was so subtle, but it wasn't supposed to be like a sexual thing, and just for the way that we run the site, we're not allowed to do nudity. So just in the future, something to know. All right, so this one was one of me and Joe's favorites, but unfortunately, this is one of those that I don't think reads post-apocalyptic when I first saw it. It reads as like awesome. It has a really good composition and illustration. I feel like the background biker here reads more as post-apocalyptic than the three characters in the foreground. And this is by Richard Elderton. And I love the way you did the composition here. I almost want to know what the story behind this is. Like, this is actually intrigued me to want to know more, which is good. Like, that's the purpose of an illustration piece like this. It doesn't read as post-apocalyptic so much as it does like a Final Fantasy genre, where it's like these are like the aeons or the summons, and like the harpy-esque. I think it needs to be explained more of maybe they mutated, but it's almost, it reads too fantastical for what this contest wanted to be. Okay, this one had a really cool style to it. It almost reminds me of Kronprinz with his very stylized look. And there are a lot of elements that I really like. And this is by FY_YAA. I think it reads as too sci-fi or too clean, where it's like post-apocalyptic but way into the future. And I think it didn't read so much as post-apocalyptic as it did kind of like just sci-fi right away. So I think it has some really clean lines and rendering in the composition. I really like how it kind of flows through the entire piece, but I think it read too much as sci-fi. This one, which was actually done by an artist that we know, it's going to come in really small, of course. This is Gabo. He is one of my good friends, and he did this interpretation, which was really awesome. I like the idea. Actually, someone wrote in a comment, which I almost like that story better, of the idea of the initial story was the girl was teaching the robot how to live, but then someone commented on how maybe it was the robot teaching the girl how to live. And in this scene, it was him teaching the girl why you shouldn't be drinking standing water like this and the impurities that that could carry. So I did enjoy the story, and I like the color use here. This was one that literally just fell right under. Okay. Oh, you know what? There's 3 more. So I know the anticipation's growing with each new piece. Digital, I love that you entered this contest, and it seemed like you really pushed yourself on this one. So I want to see you continue pushing yourself, and I almost want to see what the entire character looks like. I want to see like what the lower half of her looks like. I think you have a great sense of design and working on a character, so I want to see you continue doing that in the future. This one was one that I think both Joe and I loved the simplicity of it, but it still read as very dynamic. And I think it was just more of looking at the face and the proportions, and I think the hair was almost too much, where it's too big, where the face looked so small in contrast that it reads wrong. But if you take out, let me put this is by Tigiers. So if you take out the face and the head, I feel like everything's in proportion, but then, and maybe like the foot could be a little longer or this one a little shorter. But for the most part, I love the proportions you have going on here. But then when you bring in the face in, I feel like it's very squunched in the center of the face, and then the hair feels so big that it makes the face feel even smaller. So I would just take a look at working on furthering this piece, because I think it has a great simplicity that works so well. So I would want to see you continue pushing yourself on this one. And I know that these contest entries, it wasn't supposed to be like a mini critique, but I just wanted to give a little more feedback as to why we like them and what we could see improved upon. Okay, so I think those, oh, and then we have 2 more. This one. And this one, actually, 2 crew members liked this. They gave them a 2nd place on both of them, but unfortunately the others didn't see it quite as much. I think my initial impression was I really liked the way you handled your color, even with like the paleness of the skin. Like you can see all the other colors integrated. I just wanted to see it tightened up, and then something with a little more originality, because I do see very much Mad Max. Like this just reads as a war boy, and this is by Palladis Austin Abamonte. So even with like the center, the leather into the loop here, the metal loop, I would, if that would have been cleaned up, like even that alone, just it feels very unfinished. And it almost would be like if you spent like 3 more hours on the entire piece of where you want the focus to be, I think this could have been a much tighter entry. But I can definitely tell you understand value and integrating color and experimenting. So that was really exciting to see. Okay, and the last honorable mention was this one. And this one just missed my mark for my top 3 favorites. And just because I think I really like, let me make a new layer. I like this half here. It feels very realized, but then everything else, well, maybe even this I would put in there. But everything else feels very unfinished or lackluster, where I think you could have had a lot more fun adding different elements to it, or even if you wanted to keep it more simple. This is from Jesse K92. I would have pushed the rendering or the dynamic pose or something where like the cape has a really fun movement to it, but then having such a stiff lower pose mixed or kind of matched with clothing and articles of clothing that aren't very exciting. Even the boots, you can't even see them too much. You just get like kind of a faint outline. It would have been so much more interesting if you brought a lot of the element of rendering that you had up here down into the pants. And I think that's why this one just missed the mark. But I really, really like your sense of rendering, and it seems like you're really confident with your tonal contrast. So I would keep pushing that in further pieces. And even like the way that you handled lighting, this isn't like a pure white, it's like an off blue. And it's so subtle, but like you can see it, especially in the leather arm guard here, how the blue really kind of comes out, and on the blade especially too. So you have a really fine understanding of materials and texture. I think this one just needed a little more time into the piece as a whole. Okay, so now we are going to get into the top 3. Are you ready for this, Joe? Wait, no, not yet, not yet. I got I deserve that.
No, that was me. That was me, just me throwing the cue too early.
All right. So 3rd place, and Joe, do you have the name ready?
And yes, I do. Yes.
All right. Do you want to do drum roll now?
Oh, okay.
And then you say it. I don't have the name in front of me.
So third place or bronze award goes to Jordan Nelson, and they are the winner of $25 at Amazon and a 1-month subscription to CG Cookie.
And this was one of those that initially spoke to me. I think because admittedly, aesthetically, I liked the look of it, and it has a very graphic element nature where it wasn't going for a hyper realism. And I think it worked really well with the style that they were going on. But the story that they wrote with it, I think complemented the image very well. And then it made me appreciate the elements that were added into it. So you could definitely tell like the design elements that they added onto the character were thought out. Like they were really not just aesthetic touches that they put on the character. There was something that signified something more. And it had a nice balance to it. The composition felt whole as an entire piece. And I think the only reason it wasn't higher on the list is because I think this could be pushed further. Even with the graphic design elements, I think some of it feels a bit tight or stiff. So if you're watching this right now, or if you're going to watch this later, I think my critique would be to watch how you do your lighting and your shadows, because I get the sense that lighting is coming from left to right, especially with the background design. But then like this gun, it seems to be lit from a different direction, or it should be more in shadow, especially with the character's leg kind of blocking the light out. So it just little touches like that, I think, would push it further. And being aware of the lighting, especially when you're not going for a hyper realistic look, I think you have to be very attentive to how you're placing your lighting, where it becomes more fantastical, and you can almost have more fun with it. You can have more of like a design element to it, or even like you see like this rim lighting, this blue rim lighting, which is like a nice accent color, but then you don't see it on the gun holster or the gun itself, or even anywhere on the rock that he's sitting on. And I think that is just another one of those little polished touches that you could add in on future pieces. But really nice attention to detail, and I love the story that goes with it. So congratulations, Jordan, on winning 3rd place of our summer contest. Okay, so our second place goes to
Jens Feidler, who is the winner of $100 at Amazon and a 3-month subscription to CG Cookie.
And this was one of those interesting ones where they actually submitted 3 images, and there's something that we need to say about this one, because it had great design elements to it, and there were a lot of detail touches that they added that were really nice, but it's very photo bashed, and that's why we had mixed feelings about this one. But in the end, we thought that it did deserve the recognition just because of the concept was very strong and it read very well. But in the future, and I think we're going to make this more known, we're going to try to stay a little bit away from photo bashing, as I want to kind of push artists to learn to work on creating their own lighting scenarios, their own textures, their materials, and working with color, having a balance, and feeling comfortable with brushes. And that's why I think this one kind of caused a little bit of a debate on the back end. But this one was read so strong, and this character I could totally see, it seems like it's movie ready. And the other reason why photo bashing is even a thing is because in the industry, this is very common, especially when you need to get like a design done, let's say that day. You might be given like 3 assignments in the morning, and you have to have them finished before you go home. And you almost don't have time to do fully rendered characters in that time period that you're given, unless if they look more sketchy or more true concept. Where this, it really, like if you handed this to the modeler, they would probably have a really good idea of how it should look in 3D, and it would be really easy for them to integrate it. So I want to give a big congrats. I think the other 2, let me show one of the other, actually, do I have them? Yeah, I do. So here is one of the other ones that they turned in, and then here's the other one. And I think this is where it kind of crosses the line of looking too photo bashed, where this almost doesn't look like there was much artist integration of their own. I don't want to say, like their own personal touches of blending and working with the brush. It felt very compiled together. But I think with the large brute guy that we have here, it felt like there was a lot more time and effort put into handling the overall image as a whole. So congrats again. And now here we go. Let's get ready for the winner of the CG Cookie Summer Contest for 2D of 2015.
Ben J, otherwise known as Snivels, Snywills, and they're the winner of $200 at Amazon and a 1-year subscription to CG Cookie.
And this one was definitely an interesting one, because we had a lot of mixed feelings on the back end, where a lot of people really loved this image and the composition, the color use, and the idea of it being more concept in nature, where it read kind of a story just by looking at it. And I guess that's the true essence of a concept piece, but it definitely dabbled a bit into illustration, but it's still considered a concept piece. So with this one, I guess, Joe, do you want to give your inputs first on what you liked about it?
Yeah, I really like the idea of like this wanderer person who obviously has used things that he's found on his trip, like the mammoth tusks and the stop sign that he used as like just like a staff, and then he has captured a giant mutated rat thing, and you can definitely tell that he's wandered quite a bit through this setting. I mean, I also enjoy the contrast that they use with these colors. Like how bright his it looks like a yarnish like coat thing, and he's kind of got like this like skirt thing going on, and so I'm like, is this an old? To me, I don't know if it's a guy or a girl. I kind of feel like this could possibly be just a really buff like school teacher that's like wandered through the desert, which I really love. Like I love the concept of that. What's your input, Tim?
So for this one, I think I had mixed feelings where this wasn't one of my personal favorites, but I can appreciate how much effort was put into different areas. And like there was a lot of color choices that I really enjoyed. Like even the edging, how some of the outlines, you added an extra outline of color just to give that pop of contrast against the different foreground elements. So I like the design aesthetic there. I think there are some things that could be rendered more, but in terms of the story coming across at first look and having it be a very strong color image without it looking almost like there were areas where you like hide details and dark shadows, and that I appreciated as well. So I think those were my big things with this character, and I think it just had a very attentive detail to color use, and I think that's what I appreciated most. So okay, that is our contest winners, and if you're not watching this live stream, which I guess wouldn't make sense, but if you're on YouTube later and you're watching this, we have a full blog post going out on the winners as a reminder of who won, what they won, the runner-ups, and info on the next contest. But really, thank you guys all again for entering in this contest. Remember, these are meant to be a pushing you, or like not only it's not just pushing you to explore new territory, but it's also supposed to be you're building this community, or we're building this community together, and you are going to get feedback from people you don't know or from other parts of the country or from a different country, and that kind of unfiltered opinion or bias can just give you a straight, constructive criticism. And I think that's sometimes what artists need more than anything, is just someone to give them genuine feedback that is constructive. And that's what these contests are trying to build, which is the sense of a community where you can post something and feel like you can get feedback that is helpful and genuine. So we want to keep continuing doing that. So look forward to the next contest in October. Let me see if we have anything else on my list. And just stay tuned for the next courses coming out. Go check out the color course if you're interested. And I think that's all I got on my plate. What about you, Joe?
I just wanted to thank everyone for being part of the community. It's kind of important for, I know myself and Tim, that you guys, especially with these sketchbooks, like they're so awesome that you guys are continuing to do them. And I just want to thank everybody for that.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of cool seeing how with the new site, this community is building upon itself. And we do check it. We check the community almost every day. I think Joe does, especially.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that it's not just something that we're like, oh, go check it out. It's something that we're integrating ourselves into as well. So, okay, thank you guys again. Hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday, where Joe and I will be doing our first collaboration stream. And if you missed it in the beginning, he's going to be starting with the sketch and line art. And then I'm going to be finishing off with coloring and shading. And it's going to be a 2-hour live stream. So the first hour will be in Joe's hands. The second hour will be in mine. And hopefully we'll create something that is something that we are proud of and, cool to show off. All right. That's all I got. All right. Any last word, Joe?
Bye.
Or was that our last word?
Any last words? It's like, am I being executed?
Joe, this is your last day of living.
Oh, geez.
I forgot to mention that earlier at breakfast.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.